Alright, can you check now to see if anything's happening?
On the same place?
I guess. It says it's live, so showing that we're live. There we are.
Thing? It's from the same link you gave me, right?
Alright, we're live, so just know that.
Are we?
Yeah, look. Right
Why
there.
am I not seeing it?
Because you're on the wrong link, which isn't your fault. I'm going to reshare this link. Alright, everybody, so you're watching right now. If there is anyone watching, I have to send this link out. YouTube was acting wonky, and so I have to go and send this link out to everyone because it's been
would you
changed.
Send it to me too so I can update?
Yep.
Thank you so much. Alright, we are going to start though.
Yep, so we're just updating this for everyone else, getting the word out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hope all of you are doing wonderfully well, and praise God, we're doing great over here. Sort of been crazy right now.
As you guys can see.
Yeah, and please be patient with us. I apologize for
technology, right?
Yeah, for the confusion. I work. See, for those of you that have YouTube channels, you know that there's some problems with going live lately, and I don't know why. And so, anyway, okay, now I can't tweet on Twitter. Just trying to let everyone know. There may not be anyone watching live because none of you may be aware of this. Anyway, the link change.
Is this a channel link you just sent?
Are you on the live? I don't know. Is that the channel link or is that the video link?
Let me see.
Okay, click on the link from the email and let me know where it takes you.
It took me to...
Where did it take you to, honey? Is it taking you to the video? The event?
This?
Yeah. It's the event.
Cool. Oh, okay. The title is not right, but...
Yeah, we're going to change all that. Sorry, everybody.
Alright, I got this. I'm going to update everything now. Cool.
So, one more second, guys. I apologize. Most probably no one watching because you don't know that everything got changed. So.
Cool. Okay, I think I got that. Sweet.
If you want to make any announcements, go for it while I'm doing this.
Yes. What are we talking about?
Well, you can talk about whatever you'd like for a minute.
Yeah, we have some surprise coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we are going to be sharing soon. That how much can we share? I'm not sure, but we have lots of fun stuff planned for you guys. Planning to possibly have some guests.
Oh, not possibly. We're definitely having guests.
Definitely having guests.
Yeah.
We're just confirming date, and we have been recording some new videos that we'll be posting on YouTube soon. So, yeah. Lots of exciting stuff coming, so stay tuned, guys.
I'm trying to hurry, everybody. I apologize for those of you watching this ipso facto after the fact later on.
Yeah, let me see if anybody's...
Trying to type here. I'm typing, instead of typing Facebook, I'm typing Fabubook and all kinds of weird things. So, oops.
That's alright, that's right. It happens, Right?
Yeah.
Alright. I want to be able to check chat. Hold on, guys. Let me see.
All right, everybody. It's insane. Okay.
Oh, hello, we have guests.
Oh, good.
Hello. All right. So is everybody ready for Easter?
Oh my goodness, Easter already?
Next week, is it?
No, it's the week after. We're going to visit family next week.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. We are visiting two families, so 2 Easter celebrations in a row for us.
Awesome. Yep.
Fun stuff, right?
All right, let me just pull
big event.
My show notes. Okay, so all right, now that that's all done and over with, we've put the word out on the change. So, okay, everybody, we're going to start with a quick word of prayer. I should have done that when everything started malfunctioning, and we'll get jumping right into the topic tonight. So, Dear Heavenly Father, we love you so much. Dad, we thank you for this opportunity we have to do this live stream event in our ministry. Please bless it. Please help us to reach as many people as possible, Father. Help us to do a great job tonight, Father, to always lean on you and your word in everything that we say and do, to glorify you and your Son, Jesus Christ, Father. In all that we do, we love you, and it's in Jesus' heavenly name we pray. Amen. Okay, so we mentioned a little bit about the upcoming guests. So you have 3 of them, 2 big name apologists, or to me now up and coming big name apologists. And then the 3rd guest, which I can give a little more information on, is a friend of ours from Bible College that we've known for, oh my goodness, since the 90s, the late 90s, like 99, I guess. And they have been missionaries to Africa, I won't say where yet, for about 10 years now. And I'm very excited to have him on our show because he's an awesome guy, great testimony. He and his wife, awesome guy and gal.
They're both. They have lots of super interesting, valuable experience they can share with us, right?
Exactly.
Can't wait to hear that.
Yep. So I'm very excited about all of that, and so anyway, it's going to be really cool.
Lots of fun stuff coming.
So yeah. I'm going to do one more thing here, guys. I apologize.
Yes, and we will keep you guys updated. So, I am building believingthinkers.com website. I don't know if anybody tried going there. I am working hard. So, if you go there right now, it's under construction mode. So, what you're going to see is, you're going to see this web page where it says that enter your email to be notified. So if you want to know when we are going to go live next, or when we reveal who our secret guests are, enter your email there and we are going to let you know. You're going to be like among the first to know. And don't worry, we hate spam, so we are not going to spam you.
We don't. Ever. Yeah, we're not asking you for that information.
Not going to let that happen to thinkers. So it's been fun building this website, and more technology stuff. I'm battling with, but it's gonna be great.
Yeah, so I need to move my screen over here, guys, sorry, so that I can see everything. Erica's gonna have to try to monitor the comments.
Yes.
And the stream and
I
everything
will do that, so if you have questions, comments, you can put that on the chat. I'll be reading them at the end.
Yeah. So then, one other thing I wanted to mention real quick, and like I said, we're going to get jumping. I'm sorry for the mess up on all of that, technology-wise. Yeah, YouTube's going into beta mode for anyone that they're shifting the back end for those of us video creators, and the beta mode is not. Yeah, it's not. It's a little wonky. I've noticed a few other guys, Vocab Malone, very awesome. If you don't know who that is, check out his channel. He was having issues. I don't know if similar issues, but over the last few nights, and then
I was just visiting him the other day.
John McCrae of What Do You Meme?
Yeah, we love his channel.
Yeah, and there's so many good channels. Now, one thing I do want to mention real quick, I don't get any kickback from this, nobody's paying me to say this, is that Eric and I are going to school, and I found an very awesome online school. So if any of you are wanting to go back, whether you're doing undergrad, your graduate level, or PhD work, whatever, MAs, all sorts of different degree types, I would recommend where we're going, Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary. I think that's the proper title of the college. It's not TEDS, that's a different one. I will put a link after the video has uploaded and everything in the description. Yeah, I have to change the description for this. This is gonna
it happens live,
but
right?
Anyway, yeah. This is so this tonight is not about faith. That was an old video I had to bump out of the slot, and in order to do that, I had to just use the sort of the template that was there. So if I can, I will. Hey, hon, do you remember what the title of this was? This video? Can you look it up?
Something like
Can you type it in there while
I'm sorry. Where, honey?
You see where down here?
Oh, okay. Switch the title back.
Yeah. I don't know if you can pull the old one.
Apologetic,
yeah, so I'll let you work.
Apologetic trend, I believe.
No, oops. There you go. Sorry.
Okay.
So then, while she's doing that, I'm just recommending the college, guys, because I've really enjoyed it. I've just started in a couple new classes this month with one with Dr. Pritchett, and then one with Professor Russell. The name will pop in my head in a second. Both very awesome instructors. One's on philosophy of religion, the other's on defending the resurrection.
Yeah, we've
And
been
so,
enjoying that one.
oh yeah, Dr.
Amazing,
Both of them.
right?
I love both the classes. They're right up our alley, our field of interest. So that kind of leads me into something, which is talking real quick about apologetics, because that is what. Oh, here, would you fix this too?
Of course.
That is what. It can be difficult with apologetics. I don't often get to present formal arguments for God. In other words, it's rare. Hey, Elizabeth, I just saw you on there. How are you? And Miguel, awesome to see you guys on here. Give you guys a shout out. I hope you're still there. And Scott, what is up?
Welcome,
Boy, we got a full
everybody.
house tonight. That's awesome. You guys won't see that for a second, but there's a delay. But anyway, it's great to see all of you.
I'm so glad you guys found us after all this technical difficulty. You
yeah,
guys are
glitches.
awesome. Awesome.
Indeed. So we're going to be talking about this from an apologetic approach tonight, and basically what I just want to say as I'm introducing this is it's very seldom that I get to present like a formal argument for God. Erica does, and she's really, I think, going to end up becoming the apologist in the family, whereas I think I'm going to end up moving sort of on the fence between, as a theologian and apologist, leaning more towards the theologian side, while Erica, I think, is doing both, but I have a feeling going to end up straddling more on the apologetic side. She's able to present arguments at times when I can't, and she does a great job with it. But for me, generally speaking, particularly let's assume that we're doing apologetics like online, that what tends to happen is that I don't get to present like the ontological argument or these other types of arguments, because I end up defending just the basics of faith more often than not. And we're going to actually look at some arguments tonight that sort of make this point. These are three discussions that I've had with, I think all three were atheists. Yeah, they were. And they were not just atheists, but they were very skeptical. Okay, so I want you guys to understand that these are sort of, some of them very radical skeptics. Not that they doubt their own existence. That's how we would use the term philosophically, but rather that these sorts of skepticism, you'll see, are pretty extreme, and we'll get into that. The third one, and the order that they appear are actually the order in which the dialogue was going on. This was on somebody else's YouTube channel. I had made a comment, and then all of a sudden these comments, the first person started making comments. I got done with that person talking, and then another one jumped on. I got done with that one, and another one jumped on right after. And I'm also going to talk about how I approach this, how I do it. You'll see, obviously, what I'm saying here in these conversations. But I want you to notice also what I'm doing here. So a couple points to note right off the bat. I always try to thank people for commenting and talking with me. If they engage me first, I don't generally need to ask permission to talk to them. But if somebody else has left like a comment on somebody's YouTube channel, atheist, saying, well, you there's no good argument for God, or whatever the statement is, I'll ask them, hey, do you mind if I dialogue with you? Because I'm trying to set the tone right off the bat for being as kind as I can.
Yes, that's the basic of apologetics, I believe. It's always being courteous and pleasant person to talk to, right?
It'll blow up in your face more often than not, where they proceed to be rude right away. But for me,
maybe, but you don't have to do that,
Right. I just keep it courteous, and I actually have not had that happen lately. All one of these, for the most part, have been fairly courteous to me. They don't direct their anger at me. There may be some snark involved, but try not to take that stuff personal. Miguel says, let's see, I think it's always important to focus on the things that are most clear to reason first. Go from that which is most clear and move up to that which is less clear. Yeah, I agree. So also keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that I don't care what method of apologetic you're using. In other words, you could be using presuppositional apologetics, you could be using classical, evidential. Some people would define cumulative case as a separate category. Doesn't matter to me. The one thing I try not to do very often is argue with my brothers and sisters in the faith. So Our 28-year-old daughter told me she was an atheist a few years back. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And that springboarded me into apologetics. Right on, sister. Yeah. We'll pray for you, and I hope that works out.
That is a big reason to, when somebody you care so much, whether it be family or friends, right?
Yeah.
Gives you even more passion to study hard, and it was for me as well.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, that my I don't know if I should tell this story. Should I talk about Dan? I don't think he'd care.
Well, some family member.
Yeah, my family member was like that. He would bring his friends home from college. We would debate in our living room, and this is a long time ago now.
Long ago.
This is 97, so 96, 97, and being family, we go at it back and forth, and it's just like 6 or 7 of them against me, and so that
I
I
remember
learned.
the occasion too.
Yeah, that sort of sprung me into apologetics pretty
Yes.
early on, and then I was a fairly new believer, and I'll do a testimony video sometime if folks want to see that. I have a pretty crazy testimony from what I've sort of been through in my life and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
It'll be wonderful to share, but you never know what God might use you to strengthen your faith or your knowledge, right?
and now 20 years later, that family member is a believer.
Yeah.
And they grew up and went to church like I did as a kid. So people say, oh, it just depends on what you're born into. Yeah, no. I mean, people are intelligent. They'll make their own decisions. So, yeah, that being the case, apologetics also, we have 5 children, some of you know, just from us talking about them all the time, awesome kids. And I focus more on teaching them to think right. We do logic and philosophy training with them, as well as theology and apologetics, but we place a big emphasis on that so that when people are hitting them with these arguments as they get older and go off to college, they can think through those things. Miguel says, I was put on the road to apologetics after encountering a biology professor in college that was quite hostile to Christianity. Amen, brother.
Wow.
It's amazing how God can use these things. That professor might have meant it for evil, but God meant it for good.
Isn't that right? I
Amen.
think that's one wonderful thing about God is that what seems like really doom for human being, God can always turn it around. And I think He is so powerful in that and gives us so much hope.
Yeah, amen. Amen. And man, thank you guys. Keep sharing,
Yes,
ask questions.
We love hearing from you.
I'll get to what I get to tonight, and this may end up being a weekly thing because we're in college right now, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
What is going to happen for us is a lot of our material is going to be live. Erica will be doing some of the pre-recorded stuff, and I'll probably do 1 or 2 a month right now, and that's just because I have a heavy load. I was asked to help another apologist, I won't mention who, online with some of his stuff, not doing videos for him, but just sort of helping manage things on the back end, and then just everything that we have going on. So we also have a physical ministry where we do work. So
yeah, so much exciting things going on.
Now we love it. I'm not complaining.
We especially love going live because we get to talk with everybody.
Yeah.
It's fun.
And it's what I like about what we're going to be doing here is that we can use stuff that we're already doing during the week in order to have for source material, which is nice. Then I don't have to prepare another set of things to do. So 24-year-old son. Elizabeth says, we have a 24-year-old son, also no grandkids yet. We'll pray for you on that one too if you want them. Yeah, I'm excited. Hope with 5 kids, I'm hoping we get some grandkids.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so let me give some definitions here, guys. Now, I said I'm going to be reading these comments, but I do want to give some definitions to a few things that I'm going to mention tonight so that this really helps us. I might be using words that may be unfamiliar to some of you. If I do, just put in the comments, hey, Sean or Erica, can you define that? And don't worry if I don't see it, Erica's going to try to keep an eye on it.
Maybe I will type in some of the words for you guys too.
Okay. Yeah, and you'll see some of this. I'm looking at a cheat sheet, which you're going to see in just a little bit so that we can see the conversation. Yeah,
okay.
They can't yet, but they will be able to soon. So some of it you'll be able to, you ladies and gentlemen, will be able to have access to.
Okay.
So the definitions, the first one is an axiom. Now some of you may already be familiar with this, but just to clearly define what I mean when I'm saying an axiom is something that is self-evident or unquestionable, okay? And I would tend to lean on self-evident, something is self-evident. Now, we would take that to generally be a truth, and with that, you have different types of distinctions among truths. So you have some that deal with knowledge themselves, which is where we use the word epistemology, dealing with how we gain knowledge and how we define it, how we know whether or not we're justified in holding that something is in fact true, a true belief. So knowledge in that field we would call a priori if it's a truth that we hold that is self-evident. Okay, so a priori it's self-evident. Generally, we would say that this is knowledge that has to do with the meaning of words sometimes, but it doesn't necessarily need to only deal with that. And that defined as a statement is a priori if it can be known prior to experience of the facts. So for me, I always like to use the example of mathematics. Okay, 1 plus 1 is 2. Now, some philosophers will argue, well, this isn't truly a priori because
that would get to be kind of deep into.
Yeah, you have to have some knowledge, but what we would say is if all of us that have ever taught children, we can always say, well, if I have one pair of glasses and I add another pair of glasses, how many glasses do I have? And little Johnny will say 2. He may not understand the formula 1 plus 1 equals 2. He doesn't understand the symbolic logic, but he can rationalize that. Other things that we might say do this would be things that entail by definition. So
yes,
for
bachelor's
the word
entails what it is.
Entails what it is. It's an unmarried person. A triangle is a great example, whereby the name entails that it's 3 angles, or a blackbird. So it's a dark at least bird, right? Versus a raven, which may not carry if you don't have any knowledge of that. Generally, where philosophers will distinguish this is when we use the term posteriori and or synthetic, which we'll get to in a minute, truths, which deal with when you would know that blackbirds eat worms. That's not entailed in the idea of a blackbird. Okay, now, laws of logic are clear to reason as well. Miguel, forgive me, brother, brings up a good point. I'll give some 3 basic laws. Now, again, for some of you wondering why I'm doing this, I'm just setting these terms out so that as we go through and you see how I'm picking apart these arguments, and if I use a term, you know what I'm using. So I don't want anyone to be lost or feel left behind. But again, if I say it and it's not clear, please ask. Just type something. Hey, what did you mean again? And I'll clearly define that. So would you run out and grab something off the printer that I printed for me?
Course,
I printed a cheat sheet and I forgot to get it, guys.
Anything
I'm sorry.
else? Do you have
No.
water?
I'll be okay. I think I have enough. So, and this is the boring part for her anyway, so she knows all this anyway. So then, so a priori, sort of it's able to be understood rationally, right, in your mind. You don't need any experience, versus a posteriori, which would mean you'd need some sort of experience to sort of know it, and that might help. Analytic, same sort of idea, just dealing with semantics or meanings of words. So here again, bachelors are unmarried, triangles have 3 sides, etc. It entails, the name or the word entails its meaning. It's sort of self-contained. And then necessary truths. These are things dealing with metaphysics and generally the nature of things. We could say ontology, don't worry if that doesn't make any sense to you. A necessary statement is such if it could not have been false. Alright, so it's necessary truth if it could not have been false.
There is a lot.
No, it's just one page. It had 3... Uh-oh. There's just one page on the printer? It didn't print? Ooh, that's alright. That's alright. Luckily... Uh-oh. Oh, booger snot. Might have lost
take
it.
a look again.
No, it's okay. I have it on the computer. I can use it this way. I can use it this way. I just hate doing that, guys, because I'm moving windows around and you may lose what you're seeing. All right. So I just have notes here just to help me keep track of all my thoughts. So you've got the law of non-contradiction, the law of excluded middle, and the law of identity. I'm not going to really harp on all 3 of these either, but just law of non-contradiction for tonight would be that something cannot be both itself and not itself at the same time, or a better way to say it is something cannot be both A and not A at the same time. So I cannot be both hungry and full at the same time. I cannot be both Sean and Erica. That would be weird. At the same time, um, you can apply this in many different ways. So um, this actually stems from another law, the law of identity, that basically just says that every proposition is identical to itself. It is ridiculously simple, and almost you hear it and you go, yeah, what? But it's actually a really simple law, and the one I hadn't fully explained was the law of excluded middle, which basically says every proposition must either be true or false. It can't be, well, sort of true, right? It's sort of a lie. It either is or it isn't. So anyway, people have tried to fight this in philosophy classes for years. But hey, Adam, stuck out at Fort Bliss. Oh man, we're missing you too, brother. So um, again, if I miss a comment, folks, it's because I'm looking at my notes here, which I'm going to cue in for you here in just a second. So having set those things aside, again, if I gloss over something and you're like, well, wait, Sean, could you explain that again? Just ask in the comments below, or to your right hand side, and or wherever they show up, and I'll answer it. So now we're going to look at these conversations, and I hope that this isn't, again, this is not to make fun of these people. I've changed their names, so when you see the first person that I've dialogued with here is Mary, that's not the person's name. Okay, so I just did that so that you could follow the line of thinking while I'm going through it. So let me move this over here and transition the page. So you should now be seeing, you should now be seeing the page that I have here. All right. So Mary gets on, and I'm talking to a friend on his YouTube channel about it's the director of our college, and I'm on his channel talking about skipping class to watch the videos. It's online, so it's sort of a joke. And Mary comes on and leaves a comment underneath our comments and says, let me see here, does this school by any chance require employees to sign a statement of faith? So my response is, I would not know. I'm not an employee. It's certainly possible. It is, as it is standard for most religious institutions. And let me see here. Mary then goes on to say, a statement of faith means they can lie for their religion. In other words, they don't trust what they say. Now, that's a pretty bold statement, and already I'm thinking like, what are you talking about, Mary? How would that hold? So I'm trying to be real nice here, and immediately I start in with, well, what do you mean by that statement? Now that might seem dumb. Of course, we understand what the person means, but what I'm trying to get at is why is she holding to this? Why in the world is Mary holding to this position? And how is she coming to this conclusion? So how do you mean? Well, they can say anything in support of their faith by suppressing anything that refutes it. Did you not know this? So I'm like, interesting. So I say, Mary, a statement of faith means you're stating what you believe. I do not understand how that follows that it gives them a permit to be dishonest. In other words, I don't understand how your conclusion follows from the premises. I'm neither agreeing with you or disagreeing, just trying to understand your position a little better. So notice a couple things here first. And I'm being honest about this, ladies and gentlemen. When this is happening, I'm not trying to be argumentative with Mary because she's trying to be helpful. And many people don't know philosophy and logic and whatnot, so they may not realize they're being irrational about something. They may be holding a position and just not expressing themselves clearly, and so it makes sense to them in their mind, but they haven't really thought through how to clearly state what they're thinking, and so it just kind of comes out as being unwarranted. So I don't want to be mean to Mary, so of course I do want to be corrective, but I also want to be kind. So that's where I've sort of gone into explaining this is what a statement of faith is. They're just trying to understand you. So Mary's response is, a God exists, more importantly, their God. They have to say this, right? So my response is, are you proposing that they believe God does not exist, but they are lying? So again, she's already made the assertion that they're lying. So I'm just trying to figure out, well, how are you making the connective that they're lying? Where is it? How does it follow? I'm trying to get at the subtext here. All right, these implied premises that are in her argument. Now, in just a minute, I'm going to lay it out formally, but I'm trying to not to do that so I can just have a casual conversation. So of course she says, I'm saying they can lie. Beware. So I'm like, oh, okay. So here's basically my response is, well, I'm having trouble following your argument for a couple of reasons. I'm going to write it out what you were saying to make sure I'm following your logic correctly. If I miss something, let me know where I'm going wrong. Now, I'm doing this, I'm pretty sure Mary isn't a logician. In other words, she hasn't taken formal logic. And Ashley, hey, and I'm pretty sure that it's also the case that um, um, she doesn't have formal logic, but if she had, or she is aware of what we would all call a straw man argument, I don't want to do that. So the first thing I always say whenever I'm letting folks know that I'm going to represent their argument in what we call a syllogism, just means in this sort of formal logical form, is, hey, if I miss something, let me know. I don't want to weaken their argument. I want to simplify it so that hopefully they can see how sort of illogical it is to hold it. So you see here the P1 means premise 1. So if you have a statement of faith, you can lie. Premise 2, they have a statement of faith. Conclusion, therefore they can lie. Now, when we read it that way, we go, that's silly. But that's what's being implied here. And that's why I kept asking questions, because I already knew in my head, well, this is what the argument's going to look like. And I don't want to represent Mary's argument this way, so I kept asking questions to see if I could figure out where she's going wrong. Then I say, but perhaps what you intended to say is, they know there is no God. Premise 2, they teach that there is a God. Conclusion, therefore they are lying. And that's a little bit more coherent of a statement. And that's why I'm trying to represent it in a very strong way. However, there's a huge problem with this second argument. And here it is. I'll read it to you. I know you guys can read, but let's read along with me anyway. I'm trying to figure out how a statement of faith can give anyone the ability to lie. A statement of faith is a mere, misspelled, I suppose, statement of one's beliefs. I'm not sure how the conclusion that a statement of what you believe gives you the ability or permission, warrant to lie, or the excuse to lie. If you were to say they are liars because, blank, fill in the blank there, and then provide some data, I could follow that logic. Currently, the first argument's premise, P1, is flawed, as it does not provide a sufficient condition for lying. In other words, the first argument, premise 1, if you have a statement of faith, then you can lie. It's not sufficient enough necessarily to make that. There's no warrant there. I don't know how else to put that. It just doesn't follow. It's actually illogical.
You mean between if you have a statement of faith,
right,
and then you can lie, there is no connection.
Right,
That's what
because you don't have a necessary and sufficient condition. That the statement of faith by itself.
It's a non sequitur.
Yeah, it is a non sequitur.
That's what it means.
Yeah,
non sequitur.
Yeah, and I'm presupposing that you're holding to an implied belief that I'm not aware of. Now notice here again, I'm not saying this just to appear nice online. I'm saying this because it's truly what I believe, and I want Mary to understand that I'm not saying that that she's crazy or anything. What I'm saying is I'm presupposing she's holding to a belief that I don't have access to. In other words, she's thinking of it, just hasn't articulated it. Maybe she doesn't want to be really mean online, whatever. But what I'm telling her is, look, if you're presupposing there is, if you're going to imply and hold to this belief, you need to provide some sort of information that I can, data that I can look at and understand why you say that these people are lying. Like an email where they admit, I know there's no God, but I'm just telling these people this, or video.
A.
Yeah, or video. Oftentimes people call this evidence, but that's not really how evidence works, and I'll save that for another video, that evidence is actually not evidence until it has a supposition behind it. It's just data until that point. Don't worry about that for now.
What do you mean be aware? We are not sure neither,
Yeah,
actually, but I think Mary probably wanted to say that be aware of Christians because they have tendency to lie. I think that's what Mary's trying to say.
Yeah, which is going to be the topic throughout all three of these. These literally, I would discuss this with one atheist, all three were atheists, and then they would stop, and then the next one would start, and then they would stop, and the next one would start. I was suspicious they were the same person, but the
same person, but
I think they were all coming
different.
from the same website, and the reason is that this
okay.
Christian Braxton Hunter had been debating and discussing debates with Matt Dillahunty, and I don't know if they were coming over from Matt's channel or what. It just was sort of odd that they all three came right back to back. But I don't mind. I like the dialogue.
Yes, that's why you were there. Continue
Yeah.
to talk to not just one but three people. So
Yeah.
I
So,
hope nobody feels like they're being picked on.
yeah,
or
and that's why I
shown
changed the
his
names.
atheist or anything like
That is
that.
not the case. I just want folks to
Yes.
understand if they're holding to something illogical that they understand
Yes.
the consequences of that.
We all know that Christians, atheists, agnostic, we can all use logic, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's why we are trying to
And listen, there are illogical Christians, illogical Muslims, illogical, you name it, right? Atheists, it doesn't matter. It's just
yes.
the point here isn't just well, first of all, the point here is not to pick on the atheists.
Right.
It's to say, hey, look, anyone is susceptible to this.
Right.
It just happens to be these three in succession sort of commit these fallacies. So I thought it was a good thing to cover. So here again, going back into it, I'm presupposing that you're holding to an implied belief that I'm not aware of. In other words, you're presupposing there is no God. Therefore, they are. In other words, I said you are, but I think I meant they are presupposing there's no God. Or maybe, how did I mean that? Oh, I see what I'm saying. You are presupposing there is no God. So, Mary, you don't believe there's a God. Therefore, these guys must be lying, and they must know that. And then what I'm explaining to her here is, I would be careful to express your argument this way, as you are assuming to be proven the very thing which is at issue. This is known as begging the question. So let me reword this for you guys so you can understand what I'm pointing out to her here. Mary thinks there's no God, all right? So anyone else who says there is a God must know that there's not and must be lying. And so that's what I'm trying to point out. However, to make such an accusation, you would need to provide some data, and I'm talking about her accusations towards them. It is reasonable, based on an argument, to hold that there is no way a God could exist. They have access to this argument. In other words, there is some information that is accessible that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt absolutely that there's no God, and that these men, who she's calling liars, have access to that argument or data, whatever it is, right? And therefore, they are lying, basically, okay? And they're you can see in my subpoints there, they're willfully ignoring this data and teaching the opposite to others. Now, notice what I tell her. The second requirement is going to be very hard unless you have some sort of video in which they're stating such a thing. So what I'm trying to explain to her here is you're accusing them of lying. You've given me no reason, no data, no secret video of them admitting to this. If you're going to prove this, you're going to need to first disprove God. Then you're going to need to disprove that they know that there is no God, and then by default show that they are intentionally, willfully misleading people, which she doesn't do. Yeah, and I tell her, look, you seem quite caring, and I appreciate your concern for my welfare, because in the initial statements going back and forth, it seemed like she was trying to let me know not to go down this path and trust these people. And I appreciated that. You know, we always want to sympathize with people wherever we can and try to understand their point of view. I'm not saying believe that they're right. I'm just simply saying, you know, try to trust what they're saying. I think that's important. What do you mean, Buhalia? I went and signed up. Thank you, Adam.
Yes, thank you. So it seems like I'm not. So Mary didn't come back to that.
No. So ironically, now you all will see Montgomery is next. So literally within like 5 minutes, I was done with Mary. Montgomery. Now, again, these are all names have been changed, by the way.
Yes.
Okay, I changed these names because I wanted to protect those that where I was having these conversations with, because you know they're not here to argue back or defend themselves for their positions, and not that I'm trying to attack them or make fun of them, but they're just not, and I think that's fair. So the names are just benign, and don't think Montgomery is meant to be make fun of this person. Actually, there was a General or Colonel Montgomery in the British forces that led the Brit side invasion landing in World War II during D-Day. So I'm using that name out of respect.
You
so
like
I actually
that
like that
name.
name. Yeah, we call our dog, or I call our dog Mr. Montgomery sometimes. So it's not.
We love our dog.
Yeah, the person's sort of name fit too. It was like ... and I looked at the name and I went, oh, I'm going to change this to Montgomery. It just sort of fit anyway. So they launch right into, hey, look, believing thinkers, statement of faith. I'm I will only comment that I think a statement of faith stifles free discussion and academic freedom and replaces it with dogma. For a more nuanced discussion, faith and freedom, Wheaton of Illinois is seeking to fire a professor for violating its statement of faith. Conflict draws attention to such statements and renews debate on whether they are compatible with academic freedom. And this is actually not new. This is apparently from several years ago now. So that's what he's saying. And then he makes the comment underneath, statements of faith are certainly legal for private institutions, but they seem to imply an ideology that is too delicate and tender to survive outside the walled garden. So I kind of respond with this, yes, that is always going to be an issue in academia. Now what I'm saying here is that, look, there's always going to be an issue where there's some sort of statement that a professor has to sign. Folks, I've worked in undergrad at college and then the undergrad program, two different places, and eventually want to go back to working in academia. I loved it, and I can't wait to do it again. Whether it's a statement of faith, which both mine were religious institutions, if not, there's going to be some sort of thing you have to sign that you're going to adhere to the college's rules, code of conduct, if you will. So I said, look, this is always going to be an issue in academia. If it is not a religious university with a statement of faith, it could be some sort of code of conduct at a secular one. One could posit the lack of free speech at certain universities as seems to imply an ideology that's too delicate and tender to survive outside the walled garden. In other words, I'm sort of flipping Montgomery's statement back on its head and using it to say, you say any type of free speech that's being stifled means that somebody's trying to protect their views, if you will. So I'm saying, yeah, that could be the case, but that happens everywhere is my point here. So Montgomery responded pretty quick. Can you cite a code of conduct having similar results on an academic or student as a statement of faith, as reported in the article cited? Now, I want to point to something that I don't think I said to Mr. Montgomery here, which was this, that what he's done here is substituted a token for a type. So think of it this way. Of all the men named Sean Hurst, that's a particular token. I am a specific. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a type. Sorry, forgive me. That's a type. I am a specific token, right? So of all of the Erica Hursts, of the type, I gotta make sure you're right. You are a token, right? You're a specific example. What Montgomery has done, I don't know that he's done this on purpose, I'm not accusing him of it, is I've said, look, the very general thing here is that professors get fired all the time for violating some sort of standard. That's not unusual. Montgomery comes back and says, cite me an example of something exactly like this. Well, that's ridiculous. You've taken a generalization and said, no, it has to be a very specific thing. He's done what's called shifting the goalpost. He's made the thing so difficult to match that you would feel like a failure if you didn't, or your argument has failed. All right, not I'm a failure, but your argument has failed if you don't meet that criteria. Anything you want to add at this point?
No.
So, I didn't really go there with this because I thought, let me just, and I told him, my next comment, you guys have all probably read ahead. I didn't read your article. Perhaps I'm misunderstanding your original point. I was being very general, and I'm commenting on free speech on college campuses. In terms of my point about freedom of speech on college campuses, are you denying that speakers are canceled or moved because of their differences of opinion? There should have been a question mark there. Whether right or wrong, do you really need an example of this? Are you also implying that no student on a secular college campus has ever been denied freedom of speech for any reason? And I cite 10 worst colleges for freedom of speech. And then at this point I thought, well, I guess I'm going to end up having to look up a whole bunch of these. But Montgomery sort of came back and was a little more polite and said, I'm stating that a statement of faith starts with denying certain kinds of speech. The fact that other institutions also restrict speech does not somehow make another kind of censorship acceptable. You might want to read the article to get an idea of what I'm talking about. So I said, oh yes, thank you, I will, sorry. I should have read the article. I was simply trying to agree about the restriction on freedom of speech, albeit not having all the information. I'll try my best to read it, though, tonight, and thank you for your patience. So here I'm like, all right, I can see where this is going to go. He's looking for specific types, but what he doesn't understand is I actually agree with him that freedom of speech shouldn't be stifled. But I'm also trying to explain that that doesn't mean that I don't know. I mean, I can go on. I think you guys get it. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Because Rick's is where it gets really interesting.
I got a comment. I don't know if he wants his actual name mentioned here because he has initial. Speaking against the dogmatic ideology of so-called science today has the same effect on those questioning the legitimacy of those theories.
Yes, and that's
both ways.
He doesn't mind if I use his first name.
This is nothing new in academia. Oh, you don't
yeah, Adam.
Okay.
Yeah, and Adam, you are right. And I actually found, by the way, for all of you, you can. I mean, how hard? Think about it. In the same way I responded to him, how hard is it really? You need me to give you an exact token of it? It's not that hard. Go look up any professor that was fired or let go for not doing. Just professor gets fired. That's what I googled. Boom. There was a whole bunch of current things. Anything political, which is what this professor in the article he was citing, they were getting fired, this woman, for wearing a hijab and saying that she sympathized with Muslims. But she's at a Christian university that has a statement of faith. Now, I don't know that I actually agree with the university. I mean, what she did was sort of silly the way she did it. But
so it was not even for religious purpose?
No. So I don't know that I agreed with it, but and this is why I didn't want to weed into this with the gentleman online, is that I don't know why Wheaton made the decision, folks. I'm not there. I'm not in their head. I don't know what's going on, what exactly went on, what went on behind closed doors, what the conversations were. There may have been other problems with this professor. We all know how something like that can go. So it wasn't that I minded talking about it. I'm not worried about Wheaton showing up and knocking on my door and fighting me over the situation. I just don't want to comment about something I don't have enough information on. But again, I think we can all find things to cite, to fit that. Just again, if you don't believe me, which I would assume all of you would, somebody could just Google professor gets fired and see the hits on Google. You'll find stuff all the time. And there's plenty of Christian ones that get fired for being there was one. It wasn't a professor. It was a high school teacher got fired for being a Christian. And now we're making Christian-like claims. It happens. But again, when somebody moves the goal so far that they say it has to be exactly like this, that's almost an impossible achievement to meet. I don't think many people understand what they're doing with that. To say if you can't find an exact event exactly like mine, you're wrong. Well, okay, whatever. That's sort of part of the irrationality. Now we're going to get super irrational here. But I actually like Rick, and you'll see why. Some of you are probably reading ahead. So 2 days ago, Rick says, believing thinkers. Yep, people like Jason Liesel are typical examples of this pitiful practice. This is a PhD professor who claims if science says something different to the Bible, then you go with the booble. That's what he's trying to say there. And I actually think that's intentional. I don't think it's a typo. It might have been. Let's see, where's INO? Oh, yeah, it might have been a typo. At any rate, how can anybody trust anything a Christian ever says again after the dishonesty on that scale from a PhD professor? So notice my response. Rick, the Bible's not a book of science, so that would not be a good practice. So notice what I'm saying to him. I'm actually agreeing that, look, the Bible's not a book of science, and so if it disagrees with science, now I'm assuming here, okay, that we're not talking about general things about creation and whatnot. I'm assuming we're talking about all things scientific in general. That the Bible somehow, there are passages, folks, in the Old Testament which do seem to sort of, I'm not talking about creation scene.
Or like a nature miracle kind of thing. In
no, and that's not what I'm talking about either. I'm thinking of, there's some descriptions of the way the earth is, that don't, and the way the depths are, and the way things occur.
Yeah, I don't. There's like four corners, stuff like that.
Yeah. There's some statements where we'd say, yeah, that's being
sounds
figurative.
Like to some people, they might take it as,
right,
a certain way.
Right, and so we would say, no, the Bible's got to be right. Therefore, what? The earth has four corners? No, I mean that's not a literal statement. So that's the types of things I'm thinking of. I was actually hoping to get into this. But what I say to him is, look, that's concordism and is not recommended by all Christian scholars, though some still practice it. However, and I'm not, folks, I'm not disparaging anyone that wants to hold to this sort of thing. Notice I didn't say not everyone does it. Not everyone. It's not recommended by all. I'm not using absolutes here, and there's a good reason for that. I'm not trying to condemn anyone or throw them under the bus. I'm giving my points of view on certain things. All right. However, just because one Christian is wrong, now notice this, it does not follow logically that you can trust none. Okay. Anytime you start to see language like this, all are wrong, everyone, definitive statements whereby somebody says everything is, then that should be a good indication that there's something going on here. Was there a word you need to find?
We just did the genetic policy video, right?
Yeah.
Right. So yes, it is silly to say that because we had one bad experience, all must be
right. Well, that's
wrong.
yeah, it is a genetic fallacy, but again, what I'm talking about are also parts.
Did I read too far?
Probably. But so let me get back into this. So notice then I'm saying here, and I'm trying to be, I genuinely am trying to be nice to this guy, folks. So don't mistake me for this, for sophistry where I'm just pretending to be nice. I really am trying to be nice. So however, just because one Christian is wrong, it doesn't follow logically that you can trust none. I'm under the impression that was just hyperbole. In other words, I'm under the impression you're just sort of being bombastic. You're kind of intentionally taking that statement too far. And you're not being literal, as that would be a genetic fallacy. If I were to apply your same line of reasoning, that what applies to one part of a group applies to all, we would get this formula. If Dr. Liesel is a PhD and he is wrong, then all PhDs are wrong. Dr. Liesel is wrong. Therefore, the conclusion, that's what that means to see, all PhDs are wrong and cannot be trusted. My point is, you want to be careful to apply an entire group you want to be careful what you apply to an entire group, what you also apply to one part. Notice that throughout he keeps making he keeps doing this problem of, I forget the fallacy name right now. If anyone remembers, you can tell me. It's the whole in the parts, and it'll come to me. I think I may even mention it here at some point. I don't remember. Generally, I don't list fallacies out by name because that's not really, when you start working in philosophy, that's just, we don't generally do that too much. You just point out the illogical thinking. So then Rick says, very good point, very well made. Now notice this about Rick. You're going to see this throughout. Rick is actually honest about what he holds. In other words, he'll tell you, hey, you made a good point there. But, and then he'll go on to be illogical. I really appreciated that about Rick. I enjoyed talking with Rick because he was honest. Not everyone is, folks, Christian or otherwise. Sometimes people so badly don't want to lose an argument that they'll hold to something no matter what, and that's not good. All right. So notice what Rick goes on to say. This is a very good point, very well made. However, this is not an isolated incident. In my experience, Christians are patently dishonest and morally bankrupt. It's hard to reject a stereotype when it's consistently supported. If you lie down with dogs, you'll get fleas. So, another ad hominem there as well, pejorativism. So there's a whole bunch of problems with this, and I'm not concerned with the dogs and fleas part. But and I tell them, look, I understand your point, and folks, this is what I try to do consistently. You don't have to do things the way I do, but it's to try to set aside all the insults and whatever else, and even illogical thinking sometimes, and try and think, what is this person really trying to say? To get at that and try to answer that if I can. And I would love for you to be wrong about some who are dishonest. I think, though, that you're. In other words, what I'm saying there is, you're right. Some Christians are dishonest, but not all. I think you are saying because some Christian scholars are dishonest, all are. And this is just logically fallacious. Moreover, some Christians are dishonest, so all are. Again, this is faulty reasoning. It's a type of fallacy of composition. There it is. I do appreciate your candor in this matter and taking the time to share your thoughts about this. And I get the idea that if you think something is wrong, you want to warn people about it. However, in the absence of any rational defeater, in other words, some specific example, I trust the staff at Trinity, because this is how this all started. The comment started from me being invited to be a part of their online, Eric and I being a part of their online group, which we're super excited about. Uh, email. We're excited to do that. Um, so that's sort of where this is stemming from, because I didn't include all the comments between Dr. Pritchett, or I'm sorry, it was Dr. Braxton Hunter and I prior to this, so that's just some setting there, some context. So I trust the staff at Trinity as I know them and have no reason to doubt them. Again, thanks for your input. It actually does make me feel good to know people are trying to warn me. So here again, notice that I'm trying to be nice to the guy. Now I knew when I put, in the absence of any good information, I'm trusting these guys. I had a feeling as soon as I hit enter, send, that it was going to fly after that, and it sure did. And he was honest here. He says, his response is, I fully accept both those points. Both are logically fallacious. Now he's talking about his points. However, in the real world, however fallacious they are, they seem to be true. Now this violates the law of non-contradiction. Okay, and I'm going to explain why in a second. You may not see that at face value. I'll explain why now. So what he's saying is that these things correspond to reality. So therefore, I'm right and you're wrong. But they don't correspond to reality. He's appealing to what we call a correspondence theory, right? So a test for truth, we would say that it's just something simple. I know that this is a cup and it's orange because it corresponds to other things that I've seen that are orange and that are cups. That's an overly simplistic way to explain the correspondence theory. So if I have logicians out there going, "Oh, Sean, I'm just trying to be simple," all right. So he's saying that this is what happens. In other words, that all Christians are in fact logically fallacious. Well, no, they're not. That's logically impossible for every Christian to be patently dishonest. Now notice, and I'll get to it in my counter to this argument at this point, because it's starting to get pretty logically incoherent. You cannot say all of a certain type are this. Okay, that generally speaking is not going to be true. Now there are some things that are axioms. Remember that word from the beginning. All bachelors are unmarried. That would be a true axiom. All triangles have three sides. Again, an axiom. Okay. So yes, you can have certain axioms that are all or none. No circles have four sides, right? So that would be true, but you can't say, generally speaking, of a group of people, all of these are the case. It's just we know it's not true.
Yes, the only time I believe that is the case is it just has to be true by definition of what it is.
All Christians are Christians. Yeah, it entails that. So there you go, right?
Yes.
It's just sort of a priori.
I hope that makes sense. If it didn't make sense, please.
Yeah, please let us know in the comments.
You do have some
okay, what's
comments
up?
for you.
Comments, questions? Let's see what we got, guys.
Would you like some water, dear?
Please, ad hominem attacks.
You look thirsty.
This is,
okay, I'll be right back, everybody.
Yeah, this is a very counterproductive argument, Adam says. Each stanza falls on its own merits. You got it, Adam, and not the merit of the speaker or their beliefs. Amen to that, brother. And Elizabeth, yep, there are quite a few interesting cases about the loss of freedom of speech around the world. Do you guys watch Jay Suklow live by any chance? No, I don't, Elizabeth, but I'll check him out. And then Ashley, yep, they probably just lack knowledge. Yeah, sounds like they're scared. Yep, and Adam, so the points are wrong, but they seem true. Therefore, because they seem that way, even though I know they're wrong, they're nonetheless true. And yeah, Ashley perish for lack of knowledge, quoting Bible there. Yeah. So, yeah, notice this, guys. And what I want you to notice also is that, yeah, they also perish for many other things, Adam says. That how willing, and this is want to get to my point as I start to conclude, I'll try to wrap it up for tonight, that this isn't to make fun of these folks. It's to show you guys that people are willing to hold to something even when they know it's logically incoherent to hold to it, which totally shocked me here with Rick. I'll try to hurry up with this. Oops, sorry. So I'll give you an example of his response here is that he says, or I said, I'm not sure which point you're stating are logically fallacious. I would have to infer yours, and forgive me if I have this backwards.
Okay.
So notice I don't try to be insulting to him here. So you agree they are fallacious, but want to hold to them anyway. And I explain to him, look, if something is logically fallacious, it means it does not follow and is incorrect reasoning, which means the conclusion cannot be trusted. Now notice I didn't say it's logically fallacious, therefore you're wrong. Because folks, somebody can have an argument that has untrue premises and that commit logical fallacies, but their conclusion is actually true.
That could be. We could say that yesterday was Monday. Today is
Friday, which wouldn't make any
which
sense.
doesn't make any sense. But the conclusion can be, my name is Erica. That
Right.
doesn't make any sense. How does that follow? But that doesn't necessarily mean that the conclusion is wrong. It might be true.
Right.
It might be wrong.
So
So
yeah. So what I don't do here is I don't overstate my evidence, or I don't overstate the argument. I don't falsely represent it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to mislead this person. So I tell him, look, this can't be trusted. In other words, I don't think I put this. I need to suspend belief. I can't trust your argument unless you rework it. In regards to your correspondence theory, that is, that this is what corresponds to reality. It is statistically impossible that all Christians are dishonest on the level you are implying, unless, now notice this, I give him an out, unless you want to move the goalpost or equivocate on what you mean by dishonest. All right, so equivocating is whereby you use the definition to mean two different things. Moving the goalpost is sort of like he says, well, for you Christians, your honesty has to be perfect, but atheists, we only have to meet this standard. So in other words, it's sort of different standards, right? And so, or equivocate on what you mean by dishonest. I seriously doubt you've met all Christians. Okay, you've met all of them. Please understand, when you make such a broad sweeping categorization, this is what you're implying. I understand you want to confirm what people say. That makes sense. Notice again, and I mean this when I say it to these folks. I'm not trying to be mean. I generally want to I get it. He's emotionally wrapped up in this, the belief that he has that you people are wrong. Therefore, you're wrong. Whatever. But I'm trying to let him know, hey, you may be going a bit too far, and I'm going to try to demonstrate that. And this is the skepticism. To be this skeptical seems odd to me. I'm going to take this line of thinking to the extreme to make a point. Loose sort of reductio ad absurdum. Sort of a reductio ad absurdum. Like I say, loose because I'm not really following the form. I don't think you could live this out today. Actually, I don't even think this is. I think I wrote that and then decided not to do the reductio ad absurdum. But I don't think you could live this out today. In other words, this type of skepticism isn't livable. So notice I appeal to this. If your banker is a Christian, do you not trust her or him? Do you go behind them and check everything they do because they're a Christian? Or if your pilot is a Christian, do you not trust them to fly the plane if you fly, right? In other words, you could take that, then get off the plane and tell them, no, this guy's a Christian, I'm not flying. And this would mean you necessarily need to confirm with everyone you meet as to whether they are a Christian and decide if you can trust them based on their response. The illustration can go on, and I just want to explain to him how silly it would be if you take this to the level.
We did take it up.
To the absurd.
It's
It's a very loose reductio ad absurdum, folks. It's spelled out in a syllogism. And then I said, look, everybody, and I mean everybody, including Christians, do bad things. So if we do not trust people on this basis, we cannot trust anybody. Notice what I'm doing here is I'm pointing out the difference between a token and a type. In other words, all people, right? That's the type. There's no distinguishing factor as to why a Christian would be less honest than an atheist or somebody else, or a Buddhist or a Muslim or whatever, other than what he's saying is, or she is saying, is their experience, which doesn't hold. And you think it got bad, it sort of gets, I don't know.
Yes, and the point of doing this is, of course, not to say, Rick, you are silly, but I want to say that surely this is not what you mean. You might want to restate what you really mean a little more coherently. Otherwise, you're going to end up sounding like, this is what you hold, so you want to give the person a chance to actually state what they
Yeah.
really mean.
We're not trying to hamstring the guy, or maybe a better way to
Yeah.
say it is we're not trying to. Token. Okay, Ashley, good question. So a token would be, I'm going to give some examples. There are ways we categorize things in the different fields of philosophy. So we would say a token is something that is a general category. So President of the United States is a type, and then a token would be Barack Obama, or George Bush, or George Washington. Okay. Now, in the how many people have the name George Washington? Well, that in and of itself can be uh, a, a whole type, and the token can be. I hope I didn't invert these in my mind. It can be the smaller specific example of that. Okay, so hopefully that clarifies. If not, Ashley, let me know where I'm not being clear, and I'll try to do a better job of explaining. But good question. So in other words, it's just a way of saying general and specific, right? Examples of things. So it's a category. It's a way of placing things in different categories, is what it is. So going on there, Rick goes on to say, believing thinkers, I must say that I would be a hypocrite if I didn't admit you're right. And I appreciate, again, notice I said that earlier, Rick is very, I like Rick in the sense he's very honest, and I appreciate that. I can appreciate that a lot more than somebody being what appears to be dishonest just to, win an argument. Yeah, which everybody, to some extent wants to win an argument, but Rick is cool like that.
What's even the point of winning
Right.
if you're not even honest?
Right, and here I really appreciate this. So he says, I unequivocally admit you are. That's something a Christian on YouTube would never do. And I was like, you got to be kidding me, Rick. I just told you I agreed with you on some points, that you're right on some points. And so notice that if no Christians are ever honest, he's already failed at that, because I've already told him that I'm admitting that he's right on certain points, and he turns around and says, but a Christian would never do that. But I'm a token of that type.
Self-defeating.
Yeah, and so it's
so law of no contradiction. Is it?
Yeah, if he says that I'm both, right, then he would be, that would fall under that. So
if that makes sense.
Yeah, so then he goes on to say, yes, I find myself in a strange situation in knowing that it's a fallacious generalization, and yet I've spoken to an estimated 5,000 Christians, and to be fair to Rick, he's saying estimated, he doesn't know how many it is, and I'm fine with that, and find every single one of them conforms to the stereotype. Wow, 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 ain't that weird. Now, the sarcasm here is obviously overwhelming, but here's the thing, that can't be the case, unless, again, he's applying an unfair standard and saying, well, when atheists who make mistakes too, I just don't count them. They're over here in a new category, whereby they don't have to do that.
Oh, yeah.
There's no burden for them to be honest. I don't know what else you could say about that. As for not trusting people in society, I must admit, I don't check, but as an employer, I would find it very hard to trust a Christian, and certainly wouldn't have one as a babysitter. Given a choice of two gay guys or a Christian looking after my children, I take gays any times. They are generally more moral and better influence. I wouldn't say that gay people can't be moral in other areas. Obviously, there's the moral argument about whether or not homosexuality is immoral. So if you set that aside, in any other area, they can be moral people.
Yeah, if you were to say if you are gay, then you cannot be honest or something like that, then you end up committing the same thing.
Right.
Rick just
right, and he seems to have a stereotype still about people in that category as if they're low and you Christians are even lower than them. Now, I don't know how he meant it, so I don't want to read into it too much, but I read that and went, ooh, you might want to delete that, brother. I don't know how he meant that, but yeah, really, even if you take, and this is really his words, I just, assuming the posts don't get taken down, and I took screenshots, so if anyone accuses me of lying, I've got the screenshots that I copied these from, so, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. Do you Christians understand these things? Do you ask yourselves why? Well, no, and this is where I just stopped talking, folks, and the reason why is probably pretty obvious. It's because, hey, JMD Apologetics, what's up, brother?
Yes.
So if you think about it, the logically fallacious reasoning going on and on and on and on and on here, okay, is that it's quite bad. All right, and the reason why is because he just keeps holding to this standard that all of you in this category are bad. No matter what you try to explain to him how logically incoherent that is, he's going to hold to it. And I figured, you know what, I can keep having the same conversation, but at some point he's being nice, he's admitting when he's wrong, but he said even no matter how wrong I am, I'm going to hold to this. So that's a pretty radical form of skepticism, saying I'm not going to trust Christians because all are wrong, despite the fact that that is
Yeah.
logically incoherent. You can't possibly have all Christians that are not honest. Okay, we could say that no one in the world is completely honest all the time. Now that I would say, yeah, all right, their entire life. I would find it hard to believe that anyone ever was. I would be shocked. I'd fall over if you could prove it. But to say no Christians are ever honest, that's
It's a tough
doesn't
one
hold.
too.
Yeah.
So I feel like Rick and also the first person, Mary, set up their standard way too high, unnecessary.
Yeah.
Right, to say to make such a big statement.
Yeah, there are a number of logical fallacies. We pointed a lot of them out throughout these arguments for you guys, but yeah, that's pretty bad. Now notice I wrote out this bit on agnostic skepticism. I'm just going to read it from the page here because it's a bit rambly and because I didn't write that with the intention of you guys seeing my notes because I wasn't very critical of what I was writing. They're just sort of placeholders. I wanted you guys to see what my conversations. So here we go. So in here, what I'm calling agnostic skepticism, folks, is this idea that whereby people sort of hold to the idea that I'm just not convinced of your argument.
Mm-hmm.
You need to provide more evidence because I just don't know.
Yeah, you have to keep giving me more and more until I say, okay, I'm convinced.
Yeah.
And I have personally said that as well.
Yeah, and this is sometimes what I call the Dillahunty defense, and Matt Dillahunty does this quite often, and he's aware of it. So I'm not trying to pick on the guy. And a lot of atheists we've run into lately have done this, and at first it's sort of becoming this more and more prevalent, and I kept scratching my head at it, and I said, you know what, we need to address this. So I'll give you guys a formula first so you understand. Some of you may know, some of you may not. What I mean by this. Yeah, nothing is enough. That's right, Ashley.
You got that.
So you guys you've run into this problem. So I'm going to explain to you what's going on here and how to basically defeat it if you guys aren't aware of it. Some of you, I'm pretty sure, are, but I'm going to give this point, okay? So what happens is, in order to refute or defeat an argument, right, in a formal setting, whether it's online, Skype, at an event, whatever, you need to either show that its premises are false, or that it is the reasoning is so bad logically that unless it's reworded, you can't trust the conclusion. All right, so the premises don't hold, and so somehow that creates a problem with the conclusion. There are some logical fallacies that don't do that. In other words, they're like a red herring. Depending on where it's put in an argument, may not affect the argument's conclusion enough that it matters. There are some other fallacies where this is the case. So keep that in mind, all right? That just because somebody commits the fallacy of logic doesn't mean that the argument falls apart and therefore, haha, I won because I pointed this out. It doesn't work that way. So, but in a case like with these fallacies of, I forget what it was, composition, that actually would, because here the reasoning was so bad that you couldn't possibly win an. I don't think, this is an opinion, you're going to be able to win an argument like that. So Ashley says, what if they have proof, but that would put their safety at risk? I'm not sure, Ashley, because I don't quite understand the question. Yeah, and then Elizabeth.
Oh, you have a proof, but maybe it's something so confidential that you don't feel comfortable sharing, perhaps?
Oh, yeah, then don't, yeah.
Is that what you mean?
I think I can understand
maybe?
that, Ashley, then yes. Then you shouldn't use it. So keep in mind, in a debate setting, the way I'm thinking of this, and I'll get to your comment, Elizabeth and Adam, in a minute. I want to, because Ashley's got some point here. what we're talking about, or the way I mean this, is like a debate. So imagine either I'm in an online debate like what JMD Apologetics is doing, or Miguel may do, or some of us that do this sort of not professional, well, maybe professionally or whatever, as a ministry or publicly. All right. First and foremost, that's what I'm thinking of. Second would be online, right? And then if it's a casual conversation whereby I'm talking to somebody, I'm not worried whether or not I provide enough evidence to prove it. So there, you're not under any obligation. Keep that in mind. And you never are. If it's going to risk your safety, don't do it. Don't do that. Okay. I've been served in the military for many years. Adam and I have taught quite a bit of combatives and martial arts over the years. I've done all manner of training for law enforcement, military units, and I'll always say to you, hey, safety first. Don't put your, I can understand that if I'm understanding that correctly. So correct me if I've missed something there. And guys, forgive me. There's a bit of a delay from when you type to when I see it. So I'm sorry about that. So let me clarify some things here. That yeah, when what's happening here, and I'll sort of give you an example. Although I think we all are aware of this. Is that the person will say, you'll give an argument, the kalam, right? Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Notice. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No.
I thought you were trying to find the premise too in your head. Go ahead.
That's all right. I need a drink of water. Please feel free. No?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to stop you in the middle of this.
You're fine. I don't care. We're a team. So everything that begins to exist has a cause. Now I did forget it. Doggone it. Go ahead.
The universe has a cause?
The universe began to exist.
Oh,
don't do that.
No,
The universe
I need
began to
help.
exist. No, that's not. Now we're butchering it. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore it has a cause. That's not the right wording now, I don't think. That's not the way I word it. But anyway, either way. So you take that as an argument, right? And you throw it out there. Let me see what Ashley's saying. Are we allowed to email you? Yes, Ashley, you can. You can email us. Erica, would you put our emails in there that are connecting?
Yes,
or not our connecting point. Sorry, we rebranded our name. It's
Have you type it there?
Erica will put the emails. Yes, Ashley, you certainly can. So I've got this argument. Now what happens is fictitious atheist over here says, well, that's a great argument, but I could care less. Well, okay. Well, what do you mean? Well, you haven't convinced me. Well, Bob the atheist, I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to present an argument. So now what Bob the atheist is doing, see, is they're trying to avoid shifting the burden of proof. Because as soon as Bob the atheist, you're welcome, Ashley, as soon as Bob the atheist says something like, how do I put this? Bob the atheist says, you haven't convinced me of this. Well, Bob, that's great, but you're not interacting with the argument. So then Bob says something to the effect, well, it just doesn't convince me. Well, Bob, we're talking about an argument here, the kalam, right? So what's occurring here is that Bob is avoiding interacting with it because Bob says, well, I don't agree with premise one, okay? That not everything that begins to exist has a cause. It's wrong. Now Bob has a burden of proof. He has to explain why he doesn't agree with that position. So if Bob's not familiar with the kalam, what Bob might do is try to avoid that by saying, no, I don't like that argument. It's not convincing. The problem is in a debate setting, it doesn't matter. What Bob is doing is giving his subjective opinion about what Bob does or doesn't like. It doesn't matter, all right? It just doesn't do anything to the argument. That it won't touch the argument. In other words, what Bob is then doing is the argument stands unless Bob interacts with it. Bob has to interact with it, or Bob's going to lose the debate. Now, people on Bob's side may be like, Bob showed that guy Sean. He taught him a lesson. Bob didn't do anything. Bob didn't touch the argument. He didn't interact with it. Okay? He's just given a subjective opinion, and this isn't enough. So in other words, again, you've got to prove that there's some logical fallacy there, or
yes,
particularly truth value of the premises.
You can, if you saw there was something wrong here, you can always go there. Or if you think conclusion doesn't follow, which is a logical fallacy, you can mention there.
Yeah.
instead of saying, oh, I'm not convinced, or
Yeah.
I don't like that,
Yeah.
or
So
which is subjective opinion.
right, because they can do this forever. You see, they can say, you give the kalam, they go, I don't like that. You give the teleological argument, they don't like that. You give the moral argument, they don't like that. Which may have been Elizabeth's point. Yep, it's tricky chatting to peeps about moral reasoning, about being gay. Oh, okay, yeah, come back to all of sin verse. Christians is commenting about the homosexuality comments, and yeah.
Yes, and Adam says he scores points on feelings alone, which is extremely effective, and that I think that is what they do.
Now that is what. So I've been fortunate enough to be able to talk with John McCrae at least once a month, and also Eric Hernandez.
Yes, he's
and so,
what do you mean?
Yep.
He has a YouTube channel.
What do you mean? You guys have to check out his channel. Most of you I've seen on John's
really
channel,
fun.
so you know him. But if you don't, check him out. Awesome guy. Also, philosopher. I don't think he'd call himself a philosopher, but I don't hold such a strict definition of that. So I would say he is, where it deals with philosophical theology and philosophical apologetics. But John is very good about that kind of thing. And he was mentioning this when we were talking about it, that generally what you're starting to see is a lot more appeal to emotion, and people just don't care about what is logical and what is not. And so you get this problem. But I wanted to point this out so that if you guys run into this, you can just respond very kindly and say, hey, look, my responsibility is not to convince you. And we talk about this in our...
done that too, to somebody as well. I had to explain. Then this person was not very interested in talking anymore.
Yeah, all of a sudden when they couldn't shift the burden of proof over and over again, that they decided they didn't want to talk. But that's actually what this is, guys. It's a loose way to shift that burden of proof so that they don't have to interact with the argument.
So don't play their game. You don't have to.
Yeah, the argument stands. If you don't refute it, if the argument's wrong, tell me why. Because saying I'm not convinced, what's clever about it, and I think that's what Adam was saying, is that it's a backdoor way around of saying I disagree with the argument, right? Without having to interact with it. It's a clever backdoor way to say the argument's wrong without actually having to say it. And it's, I mean, to me, if somebody really feels that way, hey, and they want to talk about God and those things, I'm fine with that. Again, guys, please understand, we're talking about debate settings here, not casual conversation. If somebody comes to me and says, Sean, I'm just not convinced, I'll be like, oh, let's talk about it. If they're being sincere, what is it that's bothering you? A lot of times there may be something emotional that's bothering them.
Right. So they are two different.
Right, which is two different
cases.
Right.
So if your friend is coming to you and say this issue is bothering me, I can't explain why. That's different, personal thing we are talking about here instead of finding out. Instead of debating.
One last thing here that I'll mention real quick, and then I'll sort of start to. Well, I don't know. We might go a little longer. Let me know if I'm going too long for you guys. And if you need to dip out, let me know too.
Yes.
So, on possibility and probability, you guys have probably also heard this. Well, you start getting into cases for whether it's the resurrection or, again, the kalam or the teleological argument, that the design argument. Let's go there, right? And people say, well, it could be the case though that you start giving all this information for the design argument, talking about the fine tuning of the universe, and somebody say, well, how do you know that? Well, what do you mean? Well, how do I know that it's not, that life couldn't exist, non-biological life couldn't, or non-carbon-based life forms couldn't exist on planet XYZ. Okay.
Wherever.
So they're saying here that, how do I know that it couldn't exist out there? So again, what they're doing here is they're shifting the goalpost. What they're doing is they're saying, your argument doesn't work for me, but there's so I'm going to throw out these other possibilities.
Hypothesis at that. So
So
shifting the goalpost happens when the person wants you to give you what you hold. So you meet the goal by saying, here's the reason, because of these fine-tuning numbers that had to be set for universe to take place so life can happen. So you meet that. But person doesn't accept it. Say, okay, but how do we really know? Now this person starts talking about this imaginative life form that is not carbon-based somewhere else. So this scientist is speculating that there might be a life form somewhere else. So there's a new goal, right? So what if you meet this person is going to come back to you and say, well, okay, what about this something else? So moving what you have to meet over and over and over again, and that is what moving the goalpost.
Yeah, and now in that, great. Hey, by the way, you fist bump. That was awesome. Good job. So then, and just feel free to push me out of the way if you have something to say. So then, that was good.
I'm not gonna do that.
She's the smart one. If you guys haven't figured it out. So then with this also is that we have to look at what is we can say, well, it's possible that it could be this, that life could exist on this planet Europa. Well, the problem with that, guys, is what is probable? What evidence best fits the argument, okay? What evidence, and I'm sorry if I'm driving you guys crazy talking with my hands, it's just how I am. What arguments best fit, or what best fits the evidence, okay? This is the same whether we're talking about legal things, if I read to you beyond a reasonable doubt from a court standpoint, the standard requires that the evidence offer no logical explanation or conclusion other than that the defendant committed the crime. In other words, the standard is that, look, nothing else could fit this evidence. So no other evidence, logical evidence, should fit this. All right. So evidence is that Exhibit A, somebody stole the cup, and their fingerprints are on it. So whatever hypotheses are out there have to fit the evidence. So you can't say, well, it could be that a ghost with no fingers stole the cup. Well, no, that doesn't fit the evidence. It has to fit with it. It has to be logical. Okay. So it has to fit that. And sometimes, well, let me move on with that. But just understand that beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean, however, that the prosecution must eliminate all unreasonable doubts that a jury could possibly have, nor must the prosecution prove the case beyond a shadow of a doubt or to an absolute certainty. And if you want more on this information, there's a couple good books on it, or you can just go online and look up reasonable doubts, beyond a reasonable doubt. Do be careful some of the definitions you get. If they're adamant, like it's not 1 inch of iota of doubt whatsoever, check the source. It's probably not a legal website with actual credentials. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because the same legal requirement, okay, is the same requirement we use for abductive reasoning when we're looking at competing hypotheses to fit. And this method is called abductive reasoning or inference to the best explanation, whereby I see your comments, guys. I'll answer back in a second. Whereby, we look at these two competing hypotheses, and whichever one best fits the evidence at hand is the best explanation. And that's what we often have to do with these arguments. Let me check the comments here. Ashley will stay. Adam asks, ask them what it would take to convince them. The answer I have received numerous times is nothing, and that's exactly right, Adam. Nothing to convince them.
Why are we even having discussion, right?
This would then be a good time for you to politely conclude the conversation. You're dead on, Adam, and that's exactly right. Off topic, Elizabeth asks, whereabouts in Asia is Erica from? Oh, our nephew's girlfriend's from Hong Kong.
Oh, I'm from Japan. Did you guess right? Where did you think I'm from?
I don't know, she didn't get, she said her nephew's girlfriend's from Hong Kong.
Let me know if you had a guess. Some people are really good at figuring out where everybody's from, so maybe you guessed it right.
Yeah, Asians I can generally pick it out, but some cultures I can't. But for me, I've grown up with lots of friends that were Asian over my lifetime, so. And my beautiful wife, of course. So then, so I'm bringing up these standards of proof with reasonable doubt and inference to the best explanation. If you haven't figured it out, just to say that what is our requirement to prove something, and if somebody says, well, it's possible this, again, when we're talking logically or philosophically, almost anything is possible. What we're getting at is what is the most probable explanation for the data we have.
Right.
So this is why this is important. I think that's, I don't know, what other questions you guys have? It can be anything.
If you missed a question, please type in a comment. We are going to stay here.
Oh, you're headed to Korea in June, okay. Adam. Man, we'll pray for you, brother. It's for work.
Yeah, it's for work. Are you excited?
I think I see.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Stay safe, okay?
Yeah, brother, please. We'll have to get.
We'll be thinking of you and pray for your safety.
Adam and I are good friends. Well, actually, we consider
Yeah.
all of you to be friends if you're on here.
My
We're chatting.
mother attended a church that had a Korean pastor for a while. Then she had to move back.
Yeah, there's a photo of me preaching at that church.
Yes, if you guys saw a new channel trailer, there is a tiny little picture from back when she'll get to preach in that church where Korean pastor was there.
Yeah, so he's a Korean missionary to Japan, whereby he's got a American in there giving his testimony, giving a little sermon, which was
interesting, right? I was translating, so lots of intercultural thing going there.
I'm sorry you got to leave her, brother. Hopefully you won't be gone too long. I'm praying for you to get back soon then, and safely.
Oh, and I'm sure she will miss you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, wish she could go miss you.
I guess I'll give one more thing here. So remember, with all of this, folks, what we want to make sure when we're doing apologetics is do not overstate your evidence. One big thing that I see very often that folks do is they overstate that, and these aren't people that are formally trained, and I understand the mistake. Even maybe some people that are. We make mistakes, folks. Is that they'll say, they'll make a comment when they present the kalam that this proves that there is a God, and I go, ooh, that's it doesn't prove that. It's an inference to the best explanation. You have to build other cases on top of that. So we want to remember that, to be careful not to overstate our evidence. And then another one, if you notice that I've been doing, according to quantum physics, Adam says all things are possible. Yeah, they sit in a quantum indeterminate state until they're observed, right? But
it's most reasonable to hold what is most reasonable, right? What's most likely. So if somebody wanted to refute an argument, they can say, well, this will be more likely because of this reason. And you know that too. I'm just stating.
Yeah. So another one is to be kind and do not presume your opponent is bad. This is one that it can be a struggle to do when they're insulting you and whatnot. But I always try to compliment folks. Hey, thanks for talking with me. And in fact, by the way, if I'm on like JMD, I need to get back on his channel, or any of y'all's channels for whatever reason, and somebody's leaving comments. You got an atheist or whatever, Muslim, Buddhist, I don't know what they might be. Maybe it's a dog who can type. I don't know. But whoever it is, they're leaving comments and they're being they're being disagreeable, shall we say? What I tried my best to do is remember, look, this is another human being on the other end of that keyboard, and I'm going to try to approach this that they're reaching out for some reason, and they either want to be respected for their knowledge or whatever that reason is. And so I'm not going to presume they're bad, and I've learned this from Erica, guys. I'm not naturally like this, so I'll assume that they're good. I'll presume they're good no matter what they say and do, and try to treat them with that respect. And what I've noticed is they generally are kind back to me when I do that.
Yeah, surprisingly, yes.
Yeah, and I'm sort of open with that. And with a lot of my conversations, if it's somebody else's channel, I'll even ask them, hey, do you mind if I dialogue with you a little bit? Can I sometimes I want to say, can I push back a little bit on what you're saying? And if the person's not being overly aggressive, I assume that they'll understand. I just mean I want to dialogue. But if not, I'll just say, can I dialogue with you? Now, that would seem silly to most people. Why would you ask permission to talk to somebody on YouTube in a comment section? But the reason is they may not have time. They may not want to, to really.
They might be just venting.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to be real careful to how we dialogue with them, and I want to pay them respect, and that sort of sets the tone too. And then remember, the idea is to win people, not defeat them.
Yes.
Now, granted, sometimes you do need to win an argument to either gain their respect or so that they'll listen, because it may be that they haven't heard a good answer for something. Right. But just remember, the idea is to win them, not to defeat them. And again, that I see very often. We as Christians, we get on there and we start getting hammered so hard from all the atheists that you're like.
We might get emotional too. If they are emotional, it's easy to.
Yeah, it's like you're in a room with 10 people and you're trying to fight for your life, and one person walks in to help you and you hit them too because you're you're just trying to defend yourself.
Right. Who was it who wrote Tactic? Was it Craig? Was it? What was his
Coppola, I
name?
think, did Tactics.
Yeah. So he was saying that during the argument, if somebody gets upset, you or the person you're speaking to think of it as you lose. You might agree, you might not, but I feel like it's a good reminder, to try to keep it very
Yeah.
calm.
Very calm. Well,
And try not to upset the person. That way you can really get what's important instead of playing little silly game that they want to play.
And that brings up another really good point, is that when emotions go up, logic goes down. And so it's very hard to think, if you guys ever had this happen when you're responding to people online and they start getting you fired up, and what happens? You're like, I can't, it's almost hard to think clearly. I have this happen. I won't say what we do as a ministry because I don't want to get sort of sensitive, I guess. But this can happen where you get frustrated and then all of a sudden you can't remember anything, you can't remember your points. So you want to try to keep the emotion down. And that doesn't mean manipulate the other guy to make him angry. That way he can't think.
Quite contrary.
Quite contrary. I want to have respectful dialogue, and so
yes.
I want it to be productive, and so I want to keep the emotion as down as I can.
Yes, and when you're nice to a person who is really being mean to you, sometimes it can really have surprising effect. I was going to share this on YouTube video, but I was on one of the social media, and somebody was kind of talking rude to me somewhere else. So I had the option to either ignore, or some people might have said, hey, back off, kind of stuff. But I decided, you know what, let me try this. And I don't do this all the time, I don't have time. I decided to go to this person's page because it was more like a, hey, come look at my stuff kind of social media. And I liked this person's stuff. And I said, hey, what you're sharing is cool. This particular person happened to be sharing Matchbox car because he likes to remodel and make it kind of customized, which is kind of, in my opinion, cute. And Sean likes Matchbox cars, so we are looking at this and say, oh, that's really cool what you do. So instead of talking about how rude this person was with ad hominem, I say, hey, I like your Matchbox stuff. That's really cool that you do. I'm talking like Yoda. Very cool thing you do.
Cool thing it is.
Anyway, yeah, so I thought, let me try being nice because this person obviously is attacking me for being Christian, no other reason. I don't think it's my face or anything like that. So let me try this one thing to show them, hey, just because I'm Christian doesn't mean I'm gonna be good to you. Yeah. Christian can be actually cool person. So I don't know, cool might not be right. Nice, reasonable person. So I try to say, do that to see. Maybe I get something back, maybe it backfire. I don't care if it backfires. So I did that. Surprisingly, this person came to my page, liked my stuff, and left a comment and said, oh, cool. So I think, it was better than saying something rude back to this person. Yeah. Perhaps with this kind of stuff, again, from somebody else, maybe this person will think twice before attacking Christian next time. I don't know. Maybe I'm naive to think that.
No, yeah, I mean, because I get it. Sometimes people have a chip on their shoulder because maybe they had another Christian treat them badly. Listen, and this is a sub point I had in my notes here, is that people remember the impact you have on them is twofold. Okay, it's going to be long lasting, and it might take might not take effect for years. Now, the first part, if it's a negative thing that occurs, that impact's going to be long lasting. So if we're hard on them, that impact can be long lasting, and they're going to respond to other Christians that way. But if Christians are just continually, we can be, insistent that we're right, or laying out good arguments. I'm not saying that, but try to do that. That effect will be long lasting, and then it might not take effect for a while, and the truth may not register for a while, may not register for years, but some plant, some water, some reap. I forget how the verse goes.
That's exactly what Adam is saying, and Elizabeth says a gentle answer turns away wrath, and exactly right.
Yeah,
that's
amen, sister.
Such a wise word, right? Isn't that true?
Yeah, and so and again, it's easy for me as an armchair quarterback to sit here and say this when I'm not getting beat up on. But we've all been there in comment sections. I know most of you from other channels, and so I get it. I really like a lot of what you guys do. Ashley says, yeah, like maybe they should delete their account if they said something they no longer believe. Um, yeah, and I think actually I'm not. Um, there was a gentleman who was it that John from What Do You Mean? There's a guy who changed his position and actually came out and said that, and it was really cool. And he
So,
apologized to John. He couldn't retract all his statements,
oh,
but he told John, "Hey, you could share this with everyone," and John did. And I thought that is
that is a
awesome.
cool person to do that. Has to
Yeah,
be a humble, honest person to be doing something like that. So respect this person for doing that.
yeah. And actually, I don't know, if they necessarily need to delete the account, but I'm tracking, I think, on what you're saying there, and yeah. Um, Yeah. Oh, Scott, thank you for the compliment there, brother. I appreciate that. He says it's been valuable,
We
interesting
enjoyed
conversation.
having you.
Yeah, I'm just wrapping up if you guys can't tell. I
Yeah,
may,
we just want to make sure we answered all the questions.
yeah, yeah. So if there are any other questions, hit us up right now, guys. It'll take a little bit of a delay. So, what happens if they don't forgive you? Oh, Ashley, that's a good question. I think that sort of holds the same way as with the argument. In other words, what I mean is, it's not your job to convince them. All you
Correct.
can do is what you can do. All you can do is sincerely apologize
Right.
and pray for them, and try to
Yeah.
do your best to be patient. It can take a while, but I won that family member not by anything I didn't do anything, but um, what happened wasn't all the arguments and logic in the end. It was them seeing God work in my life. I have a testimony, like I said, I'll share. If you guys are interested, let me know. I'll share it sometime. Not tonight. You guys have got to be tired. Um, but it if I was a turkey, man, and this family member knew it. I was a terrible person, and when they saw me convert, it wasn't because I got in trouble. I actually did get in trouble, but I didn't become a Christian then. Life was actually going really well for me. When I heard the truth being preached, I had a friend invite me to church. I started going, and I just clicked one night reading John Bunyan's book. Well, not his book, but a book about him. I won't get into it too much tonight, but so this family member wasn't sure if this was going to be a lasting thing. I think, and 10 years later or longer, they saw that change and made a comment to me that they saw the difference that God was making in my life, a genuine difference. And albeit I'm not perfect, I still make mistakes.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah. But that's all we can do is
Yeah, it's the same with many things.
yeah, try.
Sometimes it takes time for people to really see that you mean it, you changed. So
Yeah.
that is true for
I'll
many,
give it-
many things.
I'll give it another minute or so if there's any questions. But yes, Ashley, that's a great one again. You're full of good questions tonight. Maybe you always are.
I love all the comments
Yes.
and questions we are
And
getting.
I'm so grateful for all of you coming, showing up, and listening. I felt horrible when I thought, oh no, it's not going to work because we had the technical difficulties in the beginning.
Thank you for the patience, everybody.
Yeah. But if there are any other questions, whoops, let me know. Hit us up now. I know there's a little bit of a delay for Elizabeth, particularly because she's down under. So we'll give her a minute in case she does have any. Adam says, God forgives, ask the Lord, and He will have mercy. Yeah, He loves us all more than we could possibly imagine, Ashley.
Yes.
I need to be reminded of this also from time to time as well. Amen,
we
brother.
We need a reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, and if genuine is key, yeah. And then, yeah, you're right, Elizabeth. The word genuine is key. It has to be genuine. Did you put the email on there somewhere for everyone?
Yes, I did, but I didn't put the @ mark, so
Okay.
You can.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
if any of you have any questions, you need to reach out to us. Oh, that reminds me. One last thing. I hope those of you who haven't signed off yet. They're up in the. I'll have to do a video on this, but up in the corner where you see our banner, our YouTube banner, if you look, there's a bunch of social media icons. Social media icons. You'll see one that's a green flame. If you click on that, it will take you to our Faith Life
Yes.
thing. Now, why is that important? It is a private. The Faith Life group is a private group whereby if you sign up or request membership, or if you email us using this email, in case that doesn't work, I will get you on there. Now, why is that important? The first, I think I only have like 30 slots left. The first 30 people that get access to that, I think, get access to a whole ton of information plus Faith Life TV for
Faith
free.
Life TV. So it's almost like Netflix for Christians.
For Christians, so you got Faith Life TV,
wow.
and
Who wouldn't want and
you're getting all of the Logos Mobile Ed videos for a year. You're getting access to all of those for free because it's paid for through our ministry. I only have so many slots though, so I can't like give away an indefinite number. I think I have 30. I'm saving 10 for a few people, but so if again, you can email Erica and I. She put the email in the link.
You can reach us at hello@believingthinkers.com.
So hello@believingthinkers.com. Oh, that works.
So you can write us there. And you can also click on that little icon on the banner to get there too, okay?
Yeah, and I think that you can request a
if you get
membership.
Confused, you can reach us
just email us and we'll work it out.
We'll take care of it. You just say that we want the Faith Life stuff. So.
Yeah, because that's really cool. It's a lot of information, and basically what happens is we approve you. You're creating, if you don't have a Faith Life account, you'll create one, and automatically once you're a member of our group, that Faith Life account will get you logged into to Faith Life TV, where all that material is.
Cool. So I'm so glad you're here this evening.
Because we're a teaching ministry, so that's what we try to do is help with education and that all those Logos Mobile Ed courses, and those are college level courses, guys. You don't have to be a theologian or a they're taught at all sorts of different levels, but they're really cool.
Yeah.
And you may not agree with every theologian on there. I get that. I don't agree with any 100%. Every theologian 100% of what they hold. That would be. I've never seen that happen. So yeah, the green dot. Yeah, that green dot, that little green flame. You got it. All right. So I haven't seen anything come through. So hey, we love you guys. We should be doing another one of these next week. I think we'll do them weekly for now while I'm in school.
Yes, and if there's a time you guys prefer, you can let us know to email or something, because we are flexible.
Yeah.
So let us know, okay? And Ashley, have you check your email that you sent?
Yep. Anything you guys need, please hit us up. We try to be available as much as we can because we care about everybody. This is a ministry for us. It's not just the thing we do for fun. I mean, it is fun, but anyway. All right. Anything else in conclusion?
No, thank you for being here, everybody.
Yep. If you haven't subscribed and you guys want more good content, I think everybody on here are subscribers. But anyone watching this after the fact,
you can click on the bell icon. Then YouTube should send you the notification.
Yeah, you have to hit that bell icon now.
Yes, or you can go to believingthinkers.com, enter your email there, and I will personally send you a notification next time we go live or open a new videos up.
Yeah, and that way if YouTube ever does kick us off the platform for some reason, or some of the other platforms we use, that's why we're doing the email thing, by the way, folks, is so we can keep in contact with folks. So if something like that should happen, we have a way to get in communication with one another. Not that we plan on getting kicked off, but you never know. Yeah, so anyway, I think that's everything. And if anything you guys would like to see in the future, leave in the comments below, and we'll try to cover everything we can. Hey, take care. God bless. We love you guys, and we will see you again soon. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Bye.